Greetings and welcome to Breaking Through with EP. It is indeed a pleasure to be back here with you on today. Today we have some very special guests for you today. We're going to be talking about the mental health industry. And on my right, we have a very special guest, Mr. Jeff Griffin, Executive Director of Citizen Commission on Human Rights. Welcome. We also have Mr. Jeffrey Lustman. He's an attorney, and he's going to be sharing from the legal perspective of the human rights issue on today. And we have a very special guest, Ms. Shirley Scobin. Welcome, all three of you. It is so nice to have you here, and I just want to let our viewing audience know how this all came about, dealing with the mental health industry. About 6 months ago, I had an opportunity to be at a college, Adams State College in Colorado, and I met this lady by the name of Mary Van Pelt. And she's an advocate for human rights, and she was telling me about what had happened to her in the system and how it affected her life, and now she's become an advocate to abolish a lot of the things that are going on with human rights. And unfortunately, you won't be able to see or CD. I was going to add a little clip of her so you can really hear her testimony firsthand, but unfortunately, you won't be able to do that because we couldn't get it to work. So that's why I'm introducing her at the very beginning of the show. And on her CD, there were 3 topics that she focused on, actually 2. One was called I Have Survived. And the second part was a psychiatric survivor speaks about human rights. Maybe sometime in the future we will introduce just a clip of her, but today, unfortunately, Mary, when you see this, we won't be able to air your little segment, but we'll see what we can work out in the future. Anyway, I want to get on to my guest because I want you to be educated today about the atrocities that are happening to mental health in the mental health industry. So we have Jeffrey and Jeff and Shirley. I may get their names mixed up because Jeff and Jeffrey's got me going here. But anyway, Jeff, why don't we start with you? Tell us about the Citizen Commission on Human Rights, what you do there.
Well, basically, we were founded 39 years ago to investigate and expose abuses in the mental health industry, specifically psychiatry, psychology. And this is our purpose. This is our sole purpose. We're tunnel visioned, if you wish, into this particular area because that's what we do.
How long ago? How long?
39 years.
39 years.
Yes, ma'am.
What got you involved in it 39 years ago?
I didn't get involved 39 years ago. Thank you. I got involved about 17 years ago.
Okay, because you don't look that old.
Okay. Thank you very much. I got started because I wanted to do some work in the entertainment industry, and I found out that there was a need for a television show in Tampa, Florida, and that's where I got involved. So I started doing a show, much as you are, in Florida, a live show on Friday night on cable television, where I interviewed guests, survivors and abused people, doctors, lawyers, and that's how I got started with this. And it was after I got into that I realized that there really was a problem. I didn't understand it totally. And I then realized that when my grandfather died in a mental hospital in North Carolina many years before that, that it really was an abuse. And I understand now how much so.
Can you just share that abuse just a little, not too much?
Well,
if it's too personal, we won't go there.
No, it's not. There's not a problem there. He was an elderly gentleman. He was up in his 80s, and today it would be called Alzheimer's. Back then it was called senility.
Oh, okay.
And his daughters, my mom and my aunt, decided that that was the best place to put him. He was not a danger to anyone, including himself. And he and his wife moved back and forth between the two girls' homes, would stay a month with us and a month with my aunt. And we kids loved it.
Okay.
But for some reason, Mom and the aunt decided to put him in Dorothea Diggs Hospital.
Okay.
And I think he lasted about 2 months.
What happened? Well, how did they abuse him? Did they just not take care of him, or
One
just
of
left him?
One of the things that the psychiatrist said, and this man had worn long johns 12 months a year.
Okay.
Back in eastern North Carolina.
Okay.
He wore them all the time, summer, winter. And the psychiatrist told him he could not wear long johns. He had to wear their regulation.
Their garments,
clothes.
okay.
And he caught pneumonia, and that's what killed him.
Oh,
And it's an
okay.
abuse. I mean, it's a human rights abuse, you see. They didn't allow him to be himself.
Okay, okay, I see.
And that led to his death. So I do have that knowledge. And I have another incident that occurred. My wife's best friend in high school had a son. His name is Kip Kinkle. Kip Kinkle in Portland, Oregon, was the one who, back about 10 years ago, killed his mom, my wife's best friend, and his dad, spent the night in the home with the bodies, and then went to school the next day and shot up about 22 people. So that is something that people don't realize. All of those things occur because of psychiatric drugs. He was on Prozac, and that was a follow-up of Ritalin.
Okay.
So these are just incidents and I love your title, because most people don't realize this is a money game. The mental health industry, that means it's money. It's not help. In fact, we have at the...
It's more of abuse. I mean, but because of you three,
yeah.
change can come about. Each one help one, and that one to help another, and hopefully we can eradicate some of these things that are happening. Because I'm sure there's tons of cases out there where I'm sure our viewers can relate to, and when you start hearing other people talk about things, then you start realizing that was abuse, you know what I mean? So I'm sure we all have situations in our family or friends that we've heard where there's been abuse in nursing homes, et cetera, et cetera. All right, I'm just going to move on to Jeff.
Pardon me, I have a cough, so pardon me if I cough during this. I can't get rid of the congestion. It's got nothing to do with the topic of the show, but I can't.
Okay, maybe it's just a reaction. You know, I should have brought
It's an
you out a
emotional
cup of
thing.
water.
I'm going crazy.
Okay. Tell me how you got involved in the mental health industry. What brought you into it?
I just heard stuff, really, and I was never properly trained as a lawyer. I took a correspondence course. Nobody would hire a guy for it's true. Nobody wanted to hire.
Sure.
It's true. Nobody would hire a middle-aged guy in his 40s from a correspondence course. And I started dabbling in it, and I heard about stories, things that were going on in the mental health system, and more, and I found the CCHR, and I started talking to them, and sometimes they would contact me to try to get people out of hospitals, these psych hospitals. So thank you very much. Somebody brought me one. Okay, these psych hospitals, and it snowballed some from there. I have not done nearly as much as Jeff has done, but in looking over the codes, it appears that in doing some investigation, it appeared that this was a money-making venture many times by psychiatrists ripping off Medicare and Medi-Cal. What the Medicare people and Medi-Cal people don't understand is that the profit motive, when somebody is held against their will, used as an involuntary customer, as it were, Medicare and Medi-Cal are paying for abuse. They don't mean to.
Right.
And you know, sometimes they say, have you heard about abuse in Medicare? You know, contact this number. So I mean, I've contacted Medicare and Medi-Cal, and they really don't give a darn. I know they can
What do they do?
say
Just
they
take
do.
the information, you don't hear from them?
They don't care.
It's kind of that way.
And you know, Medicare is in a little trouble. You hear that they don't have enough money and that sort of thing. You wonder what happens with the money. And part of it, Medicare is probably by now it's been ripped off like billions or so or something. It was
Untold billions.
It's billions.
Now,
whatever
they're
it is.
being ripped off by...
Doctors, because what the state legislatures, particularly, at least I know California, I'm more familiar with California, what the state legislatures never understood is the financial incentive to lock people up for money, follow the money. And this is not some minor little thing. I eventually ended up representing somebody who's sitting next to me, in fact, who Medicare was ripped off about 50 grand by the hospital. And you can't, and you try to get through the people in government, and it just doesn't click. They can talk about how they're against fraud, but it's really follow the money. And I've heard of, I remember one case some years ago, they were holding some like teenager or something, and they were billing, I think it was probably Medi-Cal. It wasn't
Holding
Medicare.
him in a, him or her in an
psych
institution?
facility. It was in the South Bay area, and they were making about $1,500 a day. Then I wrote a letter, you know, I think I helped get them out, whatever happened back then.
Good
and,
for you.
yeah, and it was, but they're ripping off the system, $1,500 a day, and saying this guy needs help, and the financial incentive to hold people is right there, and the doctors who work for this hospital, these hospitals, can make money just holding people, and it's follow the money. I mean, and it doesn't cost them $1,500. Let's face it, to hold somebody. I mean, they've already got the bed, they already got the building, so it's just gravy. They have to pay for some food, so they would make, you know, it's almost all profit, and you cannot get through to politicians largely. Politicians, I have found, largely have two things in common on this stuff. Number one, by and large, they don't care. And number two, if you were to ask them, they will deny number one. They will act like they care. This would not be going on without politicians. The section in California, 5150 of the Welfare and Institutions Code, allows people to be held under certain circumstances. The problem is, when the state legislature put that law in effect, which was an improvement, it's the LPS law, it's an improvement over a previous law, they didn't put in the proper safeguards. They just assumed that, well, the psychiatrists will do the right thing. There are some safeguards, but they did not take into account the profit motive, the profit incentive, and as a result, a lot of psychiatrists have taken the ball and run with it. When you pay these people, or you pay their facility $1,000 or $2,000 a day or whatever, it's a lot of incentive to rip off the system, and that's what's going on. And on a case I handled, Shirley's case, the opposing counsel, their argument was that, well, psychiatrists are required, essentially, to follow the rules or something. And I said something in my response like, that's like me holding up the penal code saying people are required to not rob banks. I know they're required to, but they don't follow the rules.
And they don't.
You know,
That's a valid accusation.
I've never seen, I don't know of any other profession that gets away with this.
But we have a history where, I remember years ago, a lot of times people who were different, let's say senility or senile, you know, they would kind of push them aside. But I just want to come a little bit more current. I was reading in the LA Times maybe a couple months ago, downtown, in the downtown area, they were just taking all these mental patients and just dropping them in that area down there. It'd take them from the hospital and just dropping them down there until they started putting up cameras and they start watching to see who was dropping these people off. I mean...
Let me ask you a question. Do you know where the homeless are created?
That's an interesting one. Where they're created?
Where they're created. They're created in psychiatric institutions. They are taken there for whatever reason, drugged until the point that they cannot produce, and then dumped on the streets, and nobody will hire them.
Well, that's what was happening.
It's still, and every one of them, almost one for one, they're there. There's another area of abuse in that, and that's the foster care system. They reach 18 or 19, they dump them out, and they're homeless.
So can't you champion these issues? I mean, we see there's a problem. I mean, the common person like myself can see it's a problem. How do you get the system to realize what we're doing with the mental?
Go back to the politician. How do you get a politician to do right?
Okay.
They could stop it if they wanted to, but there's another problem, too. Most attorneys will not take these cases.
Why?
Well, because two things. Number one, for instance, Shirley, in Shirley's situation, she was abused by the County of Los Angeles, which decided to put her on a conservatorship. There was collusion. I know this will sound paranoid. It sounds like I need psych drugs here. But there was collusion between...
Let's hope not. For all the people that you're supposed to be helping.
I got my water. That's
okay.
There was collusion between a court commissioner, the public defender's office, and county council to keep people from having trials. Now, I wanted to sue. I didn't really feel qualified to handle it, and I contacted about 24 law offices, and not one of these law offices would touch this case. Two things. First of all, they're not too thrilled about going against a governmental entity like County of Los Angeles. And secondly, with the mental health court, they don't want anything to do with it. That's a bad combination in their minds to take these things. There really is an untapped gold mine. One attorney told me, don't take it. It's a terrible case. You know what ended up happening, though? In a sense, he was right only in that The judges ended up being corrupt. To make a long story short, this really sounds ridiculous. The judge in Van Nuys court, he was saying, due to something called collateral estoppel, since the court commissioner found that Shirley was gravely disabled, he's going to go by that, even though Shirley never had a trial, and her attorney waived trial without her permission. I admit I'm going to let her do that, but without her permission. Then the Court of Appeals, they lied to protect the county. They pretended my client had a trial. I stood in front of these judges.
Like a kangaroo court.
No, it
That
is.
is the proper terminology for the courts that we have. Now, I don't know whether you know it or not, but he just used a term, if I can elaborate just a moment on it.
Sure.
Mental health court. Now, in L.A. County, we have a building out on San Fernando Road that is the mental health court. They handle nothing but mental health cases.
I didn't know that.
It's Superior Court 95 that has now been expanded because the psychs have gotten so many people they're running through there into 95, 95A, 95B. So most people don't know that what he just said, and that's why I just wanted to elaborate.
Mental health court.
Mental health court. Yeah, they only handle mental health issues. And they're railroad people, and you're correct. It is a kangaroo court. It does not follow proper court procedure.
Here's what a problem is. It's at 1150 North San Fernando Road. In fact, I have a little note here because I was going to mention the term that I use, Island Courthouse. They're away from downtown, like the 111 North Hill, the main courthouse there. They're away from the prying eyes. And when you have collusion among the triad, so to speak, with people on the bench and the county council and public defender's office, the public defender's office, like in Shirley's case, waived trial without her permission and just had her put on a conservatorship. So essentially what they were doing was this one, I won't say his name here, this one public defender in particular was throwing cases.
Throwing cases meaning just
waiving trial without her permission. And she was not in the room. Shirley, you were not, did your attorney ever say anything to you about do you want a trial or do you in a trial, like anything like that?
You mean you or the...
No, the other attorney, you know, the other guy, you know what I'm talking about.
You just became a product.
Right.
And they just tell me a little bit about your experience in the system.
Okay. I was recovering from hip surgery. And I was standing up, and I was in an aftercare place to recover. And a psychiatrist came in. I was standing up using the phone, and she said, "Let me talk to you. I'm taking you to a place where you're going to get the help you need." I said, "Wait a minute." I said, "I'm getting better, and then I'm going to go home."
Right, you just had hip surgery, so it's not major. Okay, not that major.
Right, "I'm going to take you to a place where you're going to recover." I said, "Where am I going?" He goes, "You'll see." He said, "If you don't go with me willingly, we'll put you in restraints."
Really?
Really.
But that's not a mental health situation. Why would they put you in restraints?
But that's the industry. You got to go back to that one word you're using in your title of the show, and it's so apropos. It is an industry.
So you just
go back
collect.
to what he said. Follow the money.
One of the things I see, talk to people, and I know this is not just an isolated incident, what they often do is lie in records to cover up. For instance, in Shirley's case, they identify her at about 8 different places as having dementia. Now, I knew talking to Shirley, she does not have dementia. I think you can probably tell just from talking to her right here, she doesn't have dementia. And they make the stuff up. They just lie.
Can't you sue?
I did sue, and the judges
okay.
stopped me. And the Court of Appeals judges covered for the county. Later, when the same judge in Van Nuys, he threw the case out again. This time, the judges. They just let the whole thing go out. So I could never get it before a jury. I have found people on the bench. It's the most ethically overrated profession there is. You got a court commissioner at the mental health courthouse who was in collusion with public defender's office, county council to keep people from having trials to just dump again on the same case. I complained to the presiding judge of that courthouse, nothing. The presiding judge of Los Angeles, nothing. The Commission on Judicial Performance, nothing. Then this case was then dismissed later when we sued by the Van Nuys courthouse judge, and the 3 judges in the Court of Appeals decided to cover for the county and lied. Even though I said there was no trial, I got a decision back claiming there was a court trial. And I don't know what's going on. Some other attorneys later told me the Court of Appeals makes stuff up, by the way. One attorney told me, I think, join the club or welcome to the club. And it might have been that guy, attorney or a different one, who told me that in his case, if the facts were as actually stated by the Court of Appeals in the decision that he wouldn't have taken the case in the first place. Judges particularly when you're trying to go against a governmental entity, my impression at least now, is that these judges are so often political and just will not do the right thing. So that attorney who told me don't take the case, looking back, he had a point. He didn't tell me judges were dishonest and that's why I shouldn't take it. But we could never get it to trial. So as a result, the abuse continues. By the way, I got in trouble with the State Bar later for writing a nasty letter to the Court of Appeals judges, just for the record. Anyway, but that's another story.
Well, I want to get back, and let me just start you for a moment. I see that you brought this very large book. You want to tell our audience a little bit about what you have here in this big book that looks like a Bible, but
well,
it's not
you know
a
that
Bible.
it is a billing Bible.
Billing?
Yes.
Okay.
Billing.
B-I-L-L-I-N-G?
B-I-L-L-I-N-G.
Okay, just wanted to make sure.
You're correct. It is the mental health industry's billing Bible.
Okay.
It's called the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of, and there's no statistics in it, of mental disorders. It just makes it sound scientific, you see.
Okay. Okay.
And what they do, they go to a convention each year, and some psychiatrists will present a paper saying, I have discovered that there is a disorder of blindness of the eyes.
Okay.
And so then the chairman says, all right, all in favor of that becoming a disorder, raise your right hand. And they vote on it. That's how they get these in here, by voting. And so then they assign a number to it. Maybe it's 302.755.
Okay.
And then when the insurance company pays the bill, or I give them my insurance number, they will bill the insurance company 302.755. It's what we're treating him for. And the insurance company says, well, that's scientific, and we'll do it. But I want to read something here that's on page 21 of the introduction.
Okay.
This is their book.
Okay.
Their words.
Their words.
And it says, definition of mental disorder is the section. Although this manual provides a classification of mental disorders, it must be admitted that no definition adequately specifies precise boundaries for the concept of mental disorders. They themselves cannot define what a mental disorder is because it doesn't exist. It is a made-up term, follow the money, to make money.
Isn't there something called math disorder?
Yeah, it is a mathematics disorder. One of the criteria for it is
So
you
we
don't
can have
like
an
math.
English disorder or a history disorder.
You have writing disorder, yeah.
It can go on and on,
On and on and on, ad infinitum.
Oh, that is so pathetic.
It is pathetic. And yes, and we can sit here and laugh about it.
Well, we have to make light, but we still have to
But
keep
we've got to do
championing
something
it.
about
Exactly.
it. That's true. And let's just take for a child.
Thank you. I was thinking about drugging of children. I had the opportunity to check out your website, and I saw drugging of children, abuses inside facilities, and drugs themselves. You know, so you can share a little bit about.
Well, there's
drugging
over
of
20
children.
million kids on psych drugs today around the planet.
20 million.
Over 20 million.
And that's our future.
That's our future. This is our presidents, our representatives. These are our judges.
Okay.
So,
Well, you
I
want
was
to
gonna
share
say
something?
This is I got this coincidentally in the mail. I get health stuff in the mail, and this is about the worst drugs and world's best alternatives. And I'm reading it in mailboxes, etc. Where I picked this up, just coincidentally. You can read this. They're trying to us something that's for non-psych drugs, and it says there's an advertisement. In there.
Okay.
33 dead, 24 injured, antidepressants found on scene. Just coincidentally, I got this. The shootings make headlines, but the real cause remains hidden and suppressed. It's time you knew the truth about these drugs and how they could be clinically replaced by 10 cents worth of clinically proven herbs and vitamins. One of the things they go on, like, remember the Virginia Tech shooter who murdered 33 people and injured dozens more? Antidepressants were found among his belongings. Remember Columbine? The killers, too, took antidepressants regularly. And this is the kind of thing, when these shootings go on, it's to the point now where almost the first thing I think of is, what was this person taking?
Exactly.
And this is just, again, this just happened. I just got this coincidentally earlier this week. But this is one of the things about psych drugs that the Food and Drug Administration does not seem to take seriously. It takes a long time to get approval for psych drugs, but they have approved drugs which are known to have some terrible effects and which are given to people locked up like people I know at Penn State Hospital against their will sometimes. And it's a cause for disaster when these drugs can have such a deleterious effect, causing whatever brain damage, and it can be worse. And in fact, this is a little off the subject of drugs, but in New York State, there have been a few cases recently, you might have heard about it, people who are being given electroshock against their will. And this is the kind of thing that goes on.
And I mean, that's a very thought-provoking issue that you just brought up about how when these kids go into these schools and they have these shootings, I don't see where the media is focusing on, is this person mentally disturbed or have some mental issue? They usually go right into, well, the parents or their life or what have they been doing or what happened in school, et cetera, et cetera. But I just want to hit on a few things before our time is running pretty short, and it's a great topic. I wish we had more time to really talk on it. But Jeff, I think there were 100 people, you got 100 people released, and currently you're working on 2 cases. Is it 2, 3?
3. Well, one of them completed last night. One of them I'm hoping is completing while we're doing the show. And another one will complete later this afternoon. And they'll all 3 be released.
And what about the state hospitals that got busted? Just briefly.
Well, briefly, Jeff put me on to the line 6 years ago. He called me and said, Jeff, you need to call this guy at the U.S. Department of Justice and talk to him. So I did. And so they were in the process, because Patients Advocacy Incorporated had brought them into Metropolitan State Hospital. They wanted data on all the other state hospitals, and we happened to have it in my office in L.A., the Citizens Commission on Human Rights. And so Jeff put me in touch with him, and he begged me for the data. I wouldn't give it to him to start with, and then I did. And so it led to...
Time kind of running out here, I'm sorry.
But it led to the other state hospitals getting busted. And so now our state hospitals unfed law.
Okay. All right. Now, just quickly, real quickly, somebody out there who has an issue or knows someone who's dealing with mental health issue, what advice can you give them, like, in a second or two?
If someone wants to email me at Jeff Lustman, JEFFLUSTMAN, at yahoo.com, I will respond to them. I can give them some information on the laws. There's limited things I can do as far as telling them how they can proceed, but I will do the best I can.
So you can give them some kind of guidance legally, and what about you, Jeff?
And the other thing is, do not go to the mental health industry for help, because it isn't. Go to a professional nutritionist who knows nutrition and how to help you over whatever it is you're having. It's not a mental illness. It's an upset in life. It's an emotion.
All right. Now, there you have it. I hope you've gotten some information that help you with your situation. If you're dealing with someone that has mental health issues, contact us, and we can get your information to these guys and make things happen for you. I just want to share real quickly a poem from my book called Drowning. Life drowning in my pain. Hurt about my body like rain. My head and heart begins to ache. Each night, no sleep, I lay awake. Praying, dear Lord, please do not me take. Each moment a struggle now. This may be you. Just know that there's someone out there who cares. Contact us if you need any information regarding the mental health industry. And with these 2 gentlemen here, we can make it happen for you. Thank you for tuning in to Breaking News.